Sometimes confidence can sneak up on you and make you do things that you really shouldn't have done. I mean, sometimes you do them by accident too, but there'll always be people that point you and go, that guy has just screwed up. Then you've got to apologize or double down on it. It's a position you don't want to be in. And it also happens in wrestling all the time, which is why my name is Simon Miller. Thank you very much for joining me here at What Culture Wrestling. Please do hit that subscribe button. And this is 10 wrestlers that couldn't hide what they were doing. Number 10, Shawn Michaels mocks the system on Raw. 1997 Shawn Michaels was quite the lightning rod. I mean, even the Heartbreak Kid has talked about this in interviews after the fact, and that he wasn't the easiest person to be around. And if you would like some evidence about what he's talking of, just go watch the September 15th Raw. Now, it started with Shawn Michaels thrusting towards Jim Ross as good old JR was doing an interview, and that's when your eyebrow first raised and you were like, I don't think this is going to plan. Ross even talked about this moment in his autobiography, but what really riled the locker room up is right after the thrusting, Shawn Michaels called out The Undertaker, even though he knew the dead man wasn't at the building. So of course Michaels was doing it knowing the Phenom wasn't going to come down to the ring and whoop his ass, and what was doubly bad from a fan's point of view is that they had just seen The Undertaker cutting a pre-taped promo. But nobody knew it was pre-taped. You see the problem. So Shawn was going into business for himself, as they say, but all that really matters is that in 2021, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker are really good friends, they're really close, and you can only live in the moment. Number 9, Triple H's sleight of hand with some barbed wire. And of course, we are talking about the 2000 Royal Rumble street fight between Cactus Jack and Triple H. And if you've never seen this, what the hell are you doing? You need to go witness this, especially because at the end you'll be like, my word, Mick Foley is just bonkers. I mean, they're both bonkers, but Mick Foley a little bit more so. This was the right move though, because after a barbed wire bat had been introduced into proceedings and just slammed into Cactus Jack's clothes to the point you could see it tearing away at them, when it was time for Mr. Bang Bang to retaliate, there was a secret switch when we went from a real barbed wire bat to a Hollywood version. And yeah, look, this was done because it was about to go into the WWE's champion's head, and we didn't want to kill him for real. But even then, this wasn't enough protection because the match is so crazy. There was just a wry piece of wood that at one point went jamming into Triple H's leg, and it injured him pretty badly, and he had to fight through. Which is something he had to do a lot. Still, all of this does go to show that no matter how many precautions you do take, you never know what wrestling is gonna throw at you. Number 8, The Undertaker tombstones Batista after he asked nicely. The Undertaker-Batista feud was awesome. I think fueled forward because so many naysayers were like, well, they're gonna be rubbish when they work together. Nearly every time they did get in the ring, there was magic. They clashed once more at Bragging Rights 2009 when they were also joined by Rey Mysterio and CM Punk, and after The Undertaker had hit the Batista with a chokeslam, something went awry. Clearly landing quite awkwardly, Taker leans into Big Dave and says, hey man, are you okay? And Batista just retorts, no I am not. He then asks very nicely if The Undertaker could just tombstone him and get this over and done with. Because the dead man is a very pleasant fellow, he drops him on his head, and that was that. Thankfully, this was all part of the plan, and the Animal was able to get back to his feet to absolutely murder Rey Mysterio, which was also part of the storyline. And if you do want to see this, it's better that you search it on YouTube, because of course, when it comes to the WWE Network, some crazy editor-producer guy has just sweetened it up a little bit. Number 7, Daniel Bryan and Paul London prepare for the PWG 100. This one is great because as Daniel Bryan and Paul London are trying to get ready for the PWG 100, where they're going to be a tag team and trying to win it all, London decides, rather than try and cut a good interview, he's just gonna try and make Daniel Bryan laugh. He does a very good job of it too, and this one just breaks down completely after a while as they're talking about flying seals and who knows what else. And it is clearly two performers just having the time of their lives. And I tell you this, we could do more of this type of thing in 2021 when you see the performers are enjoying themselves, this like magical shot comes out and hits you, and all of a sudden, you're enjoying yourself too. Number 6, Ric Flair blades at WrestleMania 8. Vince McMahon made it very clear in the early 90s that nobody was allowed to blade, and we had to have as little blood as possible on World Wrestling Federation TV. This also meant that there could be no exceptions, so if you were gonna do it, you better be quite good at hiding the fact, and even though Ric Flair had been doing it for decades, Well, he clearly wasn't very good at that part. For you see, during his match with Randy Savage, not only was he caught by the fans, not only was he caught by the cameras, but Vince McMahon saw it as well, as indeed he got a blade and nicked it into his forehead. And this was even worse because earlier in the same night, Bret Hart had done the exact same thing, but he was far good at pretending, oh no, it was an accident. So all the heat fell onto the shoulders of the Nature Boy. It meant that Ric Flair got told off, punished, and had to pay a fine. And you'd have to imagine what actually happened is this. I'm sure Vince McMahon knew what Bret Hart had done, but because he did it first and Ric Flair did it second, that's always the way, right? You can never get away with it on the second go around. With all that said though, I bet if you talk to Flair today, he would go, woo! And he'd strut and whip his clothes off and then tell you it was worth it. Number 5, Enzo Amore can't get out the ring. Enzo Amore was a great talker. I mean, he got himself and Big Cass over to such a degree that when their entrance music hit and he did start shouting into a microphone, arenas across the world went nuts for him. When it came to his wrestling, however, well, let's just talk about the Raw from February 13th, 2017. Because in short, as Cesaro went to throw him over the top rope, Enzo basically went into the rope instead. It meant now he had to find a way to get to the floor, so rather than wait for the Swiss Superman to try again, he just ejected himself like he was doing some kind of training session. The illusion of pro wrestling was broken, and I can only figure that he forgot he was on international television, and if you do look to the corner of your screen, you will see Sheamus, who was teaming with Cesaro, laughing at it all. I mean, this honestly looks like a training exercise that just so happened to be seen by millions of people. I mean, look, I'm over here in the UK, and I saw it. Whoops. Number 4, Hulk Hogan's WCW domination. WCW signing Hulk Hogan to the company in 1994 was not only huge for the promotion, but it was pretty huge for the fan base as well. Also, if you ever wondered to yourself what sealed the deal, just go to Google and type in Hulk Hogan's WCW contract. You will laugh your ass off. It could be the greatest deal in history. He did justify this though because he came in and did a monster buy rate on pay-per-view when he took on Ric Flair, and because of that, like He-Man, he then had the power, and he used this power to start hiring his friends. Now let's not pretend this doesn't happen in all walks of life, but all of a sudden at Halloween Havoc, Mr. T was here, Jim Duggan ran through a guy called Steve Austin in 30 seconds, and when Hogan needed another feud, he was taking on Ed Leslie, also known as Brutus the Barber Beefcake, also known as Hulk Hogan's best bud. This soon transferred into his matches as well because he was no-selling the Vader Bomb and no-selling the Macho Man Randy Savage's flying elbow drop, even though they were on the same team. It's hard to say it didn't work for a while because it absolutely did. But when we hit the wall of diminishing returns, well, where is WCW now? Number 3, Shawn Michaels blows up his best friend. I don't mean literally, although to be fair, that may be about to happen to one of either Kenny Omega or Jon Moxley, because as I'm saying these words, they are preparing for an exploding death match. But I'm talking about the phrase, when you wear somebody out, or basically Shawn Michaels knew that Kevin Nash's conditioning wasn't great, so he ran rings around him. Because they clashed at WrestleMania 11, and Shawn Michaels had clearly just decided that he was going to show the world how great he was. So from as soon as he heard the bell, he just worked at such a fast pace. I mean, I bet 95% of the locker room wouldn't have been able to keep up with him. And yes, it looked great, but it clearly took its toll on the bigger Nash. He looked absolutely exhausted, and I don't blame him. And this was sparked forward because of the fact they were only the semi-main event, with football player Lawrence Taylor being put in the top spot. So this was the Heartbreak Kid's answer to that. He was just gonna go nuts. Shawn also kinda no-sells the jackknife powerbomb, so ultimately, this didn't really enhance the match, and in fact it hurt it. It wasn't really two guys working together. Number 2, Shawn Michaels helps out the Great Khali. Not a sentence you probably ever thought you'd hear, but at the 2007 Royal Rumble, Shawn Michaels saw that the Great Khali was in a spot of bother, so he decided to help him out. As is the way in most Rumbles, because the Great Khali is absolutely massive, he was booked to come into the ring and just chuck a load of people out of there. And that left us, the fans, going, well, how the hell is anyone going to eliminate him? He's just so mammoth, it's gotta be impossible. The problem was that after he had done this, Khali forgot that he was meant to look into the camera and probably go, "Rah, I'm the Great Khali." And Shawn Michaels, knowing this, starts shouting at him, "Khali, Khali, please do something to the hard cam." And the Great One hears this, so he does his thing. The thing is though, you can't not see this happen because it goes down right in front of your face. Number 1, Jerry Lawler gets rid of the evidence. All the way back at No Way Out 2001, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H engaged in the 3 stages of hell, And as we talked about on a recent episode of Retro Ups and Downs, this is absolutely faboo and something you can watch today, and it still holds up. As I was reviewing it though, I did notice a little spot with Jerry the King Lawler that made me laugh and feel like I was part of a special wrestling club. Because after the gamers chucked the rattlesnake over the announce table, Stone Cold emerges with blood pouring from his head, and in that very second, he takes something, puts it on the same announce table, Jerry the King Lawler puts his hand up, he pockets it, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out this was a blade that Austin had clearly used to make red come from his skull. And you likely wouldn't see it the first time you do watch it, but after that, it's right there, your eyes are drawn to it. There's no way this kind of thing isn't gonna happen here and there because it's just the law of averages. Although I did worry about this cameraman, I bet he was like, oh man, I really should have turned my camera the other way around. But he didn't. Do you know of any other times that wrestlers couldn't hide what they were doing? Make sure you put it in the comments below, and then like the video, share the video, and please do subscribe. Then head over to whatculture.com where you can read articles like this. Please do come follow us on social media, and there's videos around my head. Why don't you click one and see if it's for you? My name is Simon for What Culture. Thank you very much for joining me as always. I appreciate your time and I appreciate your love. I appreciate your hate. I just appreciate you. I'll see you on the next one.